Now we are streaming. Now we are streaming. So apologies. And again, welcome everybody to the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. Um, there was a little mix up here before we got started, so I, I had to take a little bit of time while you was initially talking to get this thing together. So now, oh, now we got it together. My I have my host here, Katrina Poetz, and my apologies, everybody. My apologies, and my apologies to you, Katrina. Um, like I said, there was a little thing that I didn't do, a little thing that I didn't do. But we are good to go. We are being seen on the multiple platforms that I have set up for this particular thing here. So, um, okay, again, Katrina, I know who you are. The issue here is about adolescents and the lack of services for mental health treatment and other services.
Mhm.
You were talking to me before we got on about when everything started, going, I guess, downhill or started to present itself in terms of your daughter's behavior.
Right.
Um, Go back and share that particular episode and move on from there. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. So she was in she was about 2, so I took her to the pediatrician because she was having delayed motor skills with walking, crawling, and whatnot. So our pediatrician put her into the Birth to 3 program. And for those that aren't familiar with that, it's just a program for children that are delayed in motor skills, physical, emotional skills, and they help them with it with occupational therapy, physical therapy. So she had an occupational therapist that would come once a week to her daycare because working at the county overtime was rampant. We were always working. So I had the therapist go to her daycare. Um,
Mhm.
and her therapist, about a few sessions, her therapist said, this is not working. Every time I would go into her room, she would scream, she would hit, she would kick. This is not safe for me and it's not safe for her. So I suggested, why don't we do sessions at home? I can take some time off work. Let's try that at my house. And it was the same thing. So we agreed that it was no longer benefiting Eva to do these services. So I went back to her pediatrician and I addressed my concerns with her, saying that this is not normal behavior. Yes, at 2 years old, kids are having temper tantrums, but hers are so frequent and they are just so erratic, it's not normal. It could be something as the texture on her sock was not fitting right, brushing her hair, touching her head, her hair, um, going into the car. So if we were rushed for anything, getting to even just going to the doctor's appointment, it was a struggle and a fight. I mean, she would kick and scream and claw people's eyes out. It was bad. And her pediatrician just kept pushing me off, saying, this is that age where she's finding her personality. And I just was like, I don't think so. But there wasn't a lot for me to do at that point because she's 2. So I just said, okay, let me wait and see. And I took full accountability. Like, yes, I was working a lot. Um,
Yeah.
I had a full-time job. I had other kids to tend to. So maybe my attention fell through the cracks with her. Maybe I did give in to her a lot. Absolutely. I take accountability, but at the same time, I was finding resources to better my parenting skills and nothing was helping. Um,
Mm.
so we progressed. So finally at 4 years old, I said, this is enough with this. This is not getting better. I had a referral through Children's Hospital. It took 9 months to get an appointment through Children's Hospital for therapy.
Oh, what?
And they have what is
9 months?
yeah, 9 months. And it was a parent
Oh,
involved therapy. So what that is, it's play therapy. They have a a one-sided mirror. So the therapist is behind the mirror. They can see me. We can't see them. And they gave me an earpiece so the therapist could talk to me and give me directions on what to do. So our issues were at that time, Ava, if we would go somewhere, Ava would not want to leave. You know, it was a struggle with getting her into the next thing in life. So the therapist was working with me. Okay, you direct the play now. You tell her, let's put up the red blocks. Let's play with this. And everything was okay because it was a confined space. You know, it was somewhere that she became familiar with. I did everything I could to use those tools outside of the therapy. But outside of therapy, it wasn't clicking. Nothing was sticking. And I would go back to the therapist the next week and I said, I need more tools. I need more support because whatever is working here, but it's not working at my house. It's not working when there's distractions at the store. And she just, said at that point, I'm sorry. There's not much more I can do for you. We can continue this course of action. And, with therapy, you have so many sessions and then you have a review. And then you look at what your goals were, if they were met, and then you continue on with a new plan. And that was what she presented to me and said, we can continue on until we meet that mark and see where we are. And we can either evaluate at that time or we can discontinue services. I decided at that point, I'm wasting time and resources with you because this is not working for me. So at that point, she was 4. I said, I will find somewhere else that I can find resources for. Right. I didn't realize how difficult it was to get into therapy. We were in the position of moving. So, we're moving down to Burlington. I said, maybe there's other resources. It's a small community. I'm sure there's plenty of therapy down there. There was, there's therapists readily available to me. But what I found was that one therapist I went to, I met with her the first time. I thought she was great. The second time I met with her, she had to disclose to me that her son was in Ava's class. And she said that this, could potentially be a conflict of interest. We can proceed if we want to, but at that point I said, we have to stop because I want this to be completely neutral. If I'm going to see you in the office, I don't want to see you at the kids' field trips or at the kids' events because then it's not biased, it's personal. And I truly need the resources to help me. So unfortunately, I had to remove myself from that situation. I went back on the waiting list for Children's Hospital, talking to her therapist, to her pediatrician. And, they said, okay, we'll find other resources for you. But every place that I called told me either they were booked out or they did not accept my insurance. And I'm with United Healthcare. So I have United Healthcare as insurance. It's a major insurance company.
Yes.
So I felt stuck, so I just said, okay, I'll continue waiting until Children's Hospital calls me, I guess, and continue doing my own research and finding groups that I can in parenting classes because I thought truly it was me that was the problem. My parenting. I take full accountability for things that I did because there was times when I didn't know what I was doing. The only thing I knew to do was to give in to her, because I didn't want to disrupt if we're out at the restaurant. I didn't want to disrupt the shoppers at the grocery store or the family get together. So yes, I did give into her behaviors a lot. So I thought that I developed this monster of a child.
No. Katrina, can I interrupt for a second? Katrina?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't think it was you. I know that this was years ago and you were probably thinking that, but this is your first kid. Oh no, this is your second
my
kid
second.
Because you have
right.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about the whole.
It feels like my first kid again.
Right.
Right, because it's 10 years, my oldest is 19 and an adult. So yes, it's like starting over. So essentially, yes, it was like my first kid again.
right. But no, and I think that sense of guilt can be very misguided. You know what I mean?
Right,
Because it puts you in a position where you may question yourself and not know what you're doing, even
right.
though you raised the kid. But now I have another kid. You're a little older, you're a little wiser. Now you have another kid who seems to, be displaying some behavior issues. And that's not a matter of guilt. I just want to stop you and just let you know that, hey, don't 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 beat your head down with the guilt.
Yeah, I
It's okay.
appreciate that. I do because I mean there's still days where I think it's me that, could have done something different. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so at that point I was still on the waiting list with Children's Hospital. There was some things that were happening at her school. Um, and I reached out to her the school counselor, and I said, "Hey, these are issues that I'm experiencing at home. Can you step in and help?" So I went through everything, every resource I can consider to help get help. They said, "Oh, we can talk about meeting with her teachers. We can talk about meeting together and give you resources," but it's all academic at that point because she didn't qualify for an IEP, an individual
All
evaluation
right.
or educational plan because it
Wow.
wasn't educational, you know. So at that point, there was an incident that happened at her school where it was concerning to me. So I brought, her counselor told me that there is a walking clinic at Children's Hospital that they just opened up that year for mental health. And it's like an urgent care. You just walk in, they see you. And I thought for sure, okay, this will be great. I will get a therapist assigned to me like right away. That's my thinking, or at least the ball rolling with that. Um,
Mhm.
it was great. Don't get me wrong. The people there are amazing. They were very helpful and compassionate with everything. But I ran into the same issue as here's a list of therapists. We're personally not accepting anyone right now. You're on the waiting list, but here's a list 5 pages long. Go call and see who you can follow up with. And then a couple of days later, a care navigator reaches out to me and, hey, how's everything going? Can I provide you with any resources? Well, yeah, they're all on this paper, but how are you helping me if you can't tell me where I can go? Like, I have to do all the grunt work. Yes, I understand, like, that's my job as a parent to do the grunt work to find who fits my child. But I felt defeated at that point because it's been years. You're just handing me a list of paperwork. Go call on your own. And there was no guidance. There was no resources. They didn't give me any resources like, hey, why don't you try this when this, and this. It wasn't until um, last year I was doing just some Google searches. I called my United Healthcare, and I work at United Healthcare too, so I kind of know how ins and outs of what works and what doesn't work. And I was doing some
Right.
Googling, and I found LifeStance, which is a well-known. They have many services for mental health with children, adults, and whatnot. And I was able to get an appointment right away. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, how are you able to get me in right away? But other places that I'm calling that were on this list are telling me we're not taking new patients. Well, the problem was that they're not in network with my insurance. So I have to pay out of pocket for every time I go to these appointments, which makes
How
it
much
difficult.
was that?
Um, it's probably my bill is probably right now running like $700 right now, which I have to pay next week when I take her back. And that's not just that's for therapy, psychiatry, and psychological testing. So that is not the average cost. But for someone that, for me that has a full-time job and I feel financially secure, it's still a struggle for me. It's hard to come up with out-of-pocket expenses like that. I can't imagine for those that are financially struggling in today's economy how that's
Sure.
going to affect them and their family. if they don't have the means to go outside of that.
You know
And
something? Let me read off some. Let me read off some stats here just to put this in perspective because I want to ask you a question about Children's Hospital. I'm going to read this off for you, okay?
mhm,
In 2021, just after COVID, 11.5% of children ages 3 to 17 in Wisconsin received mental health care in the past year. Only 11.5% compared to 11.2 nationally. There are 66 counties in Wisconsin that has a psychiatrist available.
mm,
The key words are a psychiatrist, not psychiatrists, a psychiatrist.
oh wow, yeah,
So yeah, you get what I'm saying? So it's I got one more. I'm gonna say this too, and this is this is a national stat. About 20% of children who need services receive appropriate help from mental health professionals. That's a national stat. 20, about 20%.
wow,
So so to so to expound on this topic here, you're from based on what you're saying, you you know by proxy are falling into this trick bag
right,
of adolescents and youth that aren't getting quality care. I mean, you mentioned about your insurance. I mean, you got good insurance.
hmm,
You have good insurance. And I'm still tripping about how they denied services for your child. And what's worse is that your child is displaying these symptoms at such a young age.
hmm,
And it's leaving you in a very precarious situation because you're not getting the help that you need. And I can tell just by the few minutes that we've been talking that this has really affected you, Katrina.
oh for sure, for sure.
This has
I
really affected you.
I feel like it's impacting her quality of life. It's impacting the relationships that she is able to build and the relationships with me too as her mom because a lot of people don't understand. And it's not something I would never go out and say like, oh, my child has this because a diagnosis for a child is never a label or an excuse or something that should be stuck with them. But I feel like you almost have to label or say that for people to accept the your child, and it's sad because we shouldn't have to do that. you know we should be able to find the resources that we need, and even for adults the resources there are so limited, and it's so sad. And we spoke the other day, and I was telling you that a lot of mental health providers are just either overbooked or they're not taking the insurance. Everyone right now, so when you go to your primary care doctor for an annual wellness visit, this is across the board for everybody, starting off at the age of 11 or 12 up until you stop going. You have a mental health assessment or a screening. There's questions that they ask you, and it's called a PHQ-3 score. And it's basically your mental health status. And if you score high on these questions, they refer you to a specialist or a therapist. But a lot of times now, with my job where I'm working right now, we don't have mental health specialists to refer to. So everyone is going back to their primary care doctor. Primary care providers are not equipped to deal with this. Primary care providers are there to help you with your basic healthcare needs. Why are we
Right.
referring them back to a primary care provider to handle something that they're not equipped with?
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem. That's
Mm-hmm.
a problem across the nation. This is not just
Right.
Wisconsin, this is across the nation. Like, is there just not enough therapists? I mean, I strongly feel this is just me thinking this. I don't think you need to be clinically, you know, have a master's degree or a doctor's degree to be a therapist. I I don't. I just don't think that we have enough resources to like openly talk about mental health and talk about struggles. I think everyone is told to just shut your feelings down, or if you express your feelings, you're weak or you're belittled or criticized. It's hard.
It is. It is. And speaking of hospitals, I want to ask you a question here. I remember during our conversation, you mentioned that you sent uh your Ava, your daughter, to Children's Hospital to get services.
Mm-hmm.
Ex I know we talked about that, but I want you to break down how that process went because it proves your point that hospitals and professionals aren't trained,
Yeah,
right,
right,
to deal with this particular issue, and the people that are trained to deal with it are few in number.
right, right. So,
So
it
talk
was
about.
like a walk-in clinic, essentially. You go there, you fill out a short form of why you're here. They bring you back into a room, you talk to an intake worker. So it's not even like a clinician or a nurse, it's just just a lady that just says, why are you here? What are you looking for? In this case, Ava was just making some statements of harm. And to me, I took it seriously because you never know. And so I was explaining to this woman that was there what, my concerns at what was said at school. And I was hoping to get some therapy or if she needed medic. And I told them about the behaviors I was having at home. So it wasn't just this incident happened at school. I went back the whole history of how this all started, how I need help now. And she took her notes and she said, okay, well, let me go talk to our case manager. So the case manager came in, had me leave the room and talk to Ava privately. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what the conversation was between them because it is something private that Ava should be able to share in privacy, privately with her. Of course, if there was anything that self-harm to herself or others or something that was endangering, then she would explain, tell me. But I felt left in the dark of what was being said behind closed doors with my child.
Mm.
They were back there maybe about 20 minutes or so. I was in the waiting room. She came back and got me. And basically, what she told me was Ava expressed to me, what she was feeling. Um, I think that she would benefit from services with a therapist. Unfortunately, we don't have, I see that you're on the list. We don't have any openings right now. And here's some resources I can provide you. And that was that. And I was like, that's
Saying
it.
stuff you've heard.
I
The
could have
same
done
stuff you
it.
heard before.
Right. I said I could have, I was upset because I said I could have just called and did this over the phone. You know, and I guess I'm more upset that they didn't, I don't know. They were wonderful. Like they were like, caring, compassionate, but I think they just kind of brushed me off. And because I don't know, maybe it wasn't as urgent as others that need care immediately, but to me, I need help too, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah. You do.
then that was last year, last school year. And then this past October. So I started with Life Stance. Ava was seeing her therapist. I started that in August of last year. So she had a few sessions. We were going weekly, and everything was wonderful. The therapist at Life Stance really listened to my concerns, and each week, if there's a new concern that comes up, she might have a plan to work with that she had an idea of, but she'll shift gears and she'll work with Ava to combat the new issue that came up, which I think she's great with. Um, but in October, I took Ava to a pumpkin farm in Washington County. So it was about an hour away from my house. Um, and she had a complete meltdown, and this is where her diagnosis started, how I knew there was something deeper than just, behavior issues because a pumpkin farm is fun for kids, right? You would think. She,
Yeah, you think, yeah.
you would think, and she like she having fun, but she lost it. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what triggered her. I don't know what happened. She just completely lost it. And it was bad. I mean, she was like punching me. She was pulling my hair. She ripped my shirt. And I was asking my oldest daughter, who was with me at the time, I asked her to help me, like, go get someone to help, like a worker. The worker came over to me and just said, "You have to leave because you're disrupting other families in the park." And I just said, "I'm trying to leave." And I wanted to break down and cry because I felt like all eyes were on me and judgment was on
Mm-hmm.
me. Like, look at that out of control kid. And now Ava is
Mm-hmm.
very tall as it is. So yeah, she's only 8, but she looks like she's 13. She's tall. And that as a factor of like, oh, look at that mom, look at that kid. And I was just like, oh my gosh, no one wanted to help me. And I get that
Mm.
because it's a liability thing. You don't know what's happening. I guess if I was in that situation, I wouldn't know what to do either. But I felt so defeated and so lost. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't drive home and over an hour in the car with her acting like this
Mm.
because it's a safety thing. Um, I finally got her out into the parking lot, and this woman came up to me and she said, "I'm a crisis worker. I'm here to help you." And I was like, oh my gosh, like you're the first person out of everyone here that is willing to stop and help me. And I guess my pride was like too big at that point because even though I was saying thank you, but I was just like, no, I'm okay because I don't know how anyone can help me. For so long, I've been pushed away and dismissed. When someone was
Yeah.
actually trying to help me, I didn't know what to do. So I just said, no, thank you. I don't want you getting hurt. You're here with your family. I don't want to ruin your
Yeah.
day. Like, thank you, but no, thank you. But she insisted.
Yeah.
She said, no, I am
Mm.
here to help you. She was like, I am going to have a police officer come just for crowd, like to control the crowd that's surrounding us. But she was like, but I am here, even though I'm not working, I'm here and obligated to help you. Like I'm a mom too, and it was so nice. And it was great. They were able to get her calmed down. Um, and she gave me her card. She said, please call me if you need anything. And then when she asked me what county I live in, because she was like, I want to call you on Monday. What county are you in? Are you in Washington County? I said, I'm in Racine County. Her exact words were, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I said, "What do you?" I
Oh.
was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like, you can't help me." And she said, "I would love to help you." She's like, "Please call me if." She's like, "I can try to provide you with what resources I know are available, um, but you need to call your crisis line and receive." And she's like, "I am so sorry." I didn't know the impact of "Oh, I'm sorry," what that truly meant until a few months later. When I
Mm.
truly had to call the crisis line, um,
Yeah.
because Ava was again having like an explosive meltdown. Um, like,
Now, now let me stop you right quick,
yeah.
Katrina. I want to ask, uh, how often does Ava have these meltdowns?
Um, right now, not as frequently because she's on medication now to help her with it. So they're very few and far
Prior to,
right
prior
now.
to,
But these,
okay, prior to.
yes, but these meltdowns that were happening were every single day, every day, sometimes multiple times a day. There was never a day that went by that I did not have to pull over my car from driving because she was throwing things or hitting or kicking or yeah, it was every day. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so it was definitely a struggle.
I know during our interview too, you spoke to me about an incident where you had to call, where you mentioned that you called uh, the crisis hotline.
Hmm.
Now, during this call, you mentioned that they brought the police to you.
Yeah.
Right. So I want you to give me the short version of what happened, because this further cements the conversation here.
Yeah. Yeah.
This further cements the
Yeah.
conversation here. So yeah, yeah, break it down for me, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so she was like just out of control. Like she was violent at this point where I was fearing for my safety and her safety. So I called the crisis line. Um, and when I called the crisis line, a man answered, and I thought that I was talking to the actual like crisis worker. And I just said explain what was happening. He just said, okay. He was very monotone. He was like, okay, okay. And I said, are you going to help me? Like, are you just going to say, okay? He said, I'm sorry, ma'am. I have to pass this on to our crisis worker. I was like, oh my gosh, like, you're going to pass this on to the crisis worker. What am I going to do? So at that point, I called the Burlington Police Department because I mean it was bad. I didn't want my neighbors to call the cops on me for what was happening outside of my house. Um, so when the police officers came, there was two of them, a sergeant and a regular officer. Um, they kind of just came up and was like talking to Ava. Now, of course, she is going to calm down immediately because there's scary authoritative figures here. And she thought that she was going to go to jail or something in her mind,
Oh,
I, because she knew that what she was doing was wrong. And that's the thing with her. She's she knows what she's doing is wrong, but when she's in these rage moments, there's no stopping her. It's so hard to explain unless someone actually sees what's going on. But the cop came, she's on the front porch. He was like, all right, you be good. You listen to your mom, young lady. If I have to come back here, you're going to be in big trouble. And I was like, I wasn't asking for a scolding or a parenting session here. I was asking
right.
for like help. And then I said, okay, I need the crisis line to call me. And I explained to him, I said, I called the crisis line. I'm waiting for someone to call me back. How long does that take? And I asked the officer, can you call for me? Can you expedite this? He just said, nope, however long it takes them to call you back, there's no time limit. And he had this tone to him that was like, oh, whatever, your kid is just being a brat. And I remember, I was upset. And I said to him, how can you just say like whenever they come, like when I'm telling you what just happened. And I kid you not, he told me that there's people that he will like they're on the ledge or they're like physically like going to end their life and they sit on them until the crisis worker. There's no urgency, is what the officer said. There was no urgency. Um, so the cops left because at that point Ava was calmed down. And I said, "There's no point for you to sit around." And I was irritated because their tone and the way that they're treating me and my daughter. They're no help for me right now. So they left. The crisis worker called me back and explaining what to do. And I was trying to leave my office. And Ava got triggered again, and she actually heard what was happening in the background. So the crisis worker said, I'm on my way, but I'm 45 minutes away, at least 45 minutes. But I'm going to have, she's like, but if you need anything, call the cops. I'll be there. So at that point, I just went outside into my garage to let Ava just go crazy, I guess, because there's nothing else I could do at that point. She was raging. The same cop that was at my house 30 minutes prior came back. And he came up my driveway and said, all right, I'm done with these fucking games. Sorry for my language, but this is what he said. I'm sorry for these games. Let's go in the house now. We're done. If I have to do the parenting for you, that's what I'll do. And I was like, what? Excuse me? So I was highly, highly livid. But he did. He sat with Ava in the empty bedroom upstairs and sat with her. He was like, and I'll be here all night if I have to. And the crisis worker told me 45 minutes that she'd be there. At that time when she called me, it was 4:30. So I'm expecting at most 5:30 for her to show up. She didn't show up to my house until 7:30 at night. And when she came, I was like, what happened? Did you get lost? Like, what
Yeah.
happened? There was no phone call. There was nothing to say, hey, I'm running late. What happened? She said there was another urgent matter that had to be addressed. And I said, how do you differentiate what's urgent? Honestly,
Yeah. Yeah.
because my child is 8 years old sitting upstairs with a police officer right now. You think that she's safe? Like just how the cops are treating me and my daughter right now. And now with everything happening with law enforcement, are they truly safe? Um, how do you differentiate what's going on? Like you just know what's being told to you. You don't know the whole situation. I feel like she should have been assigned and she should have been truly on her way. They should have had another crisis worker go to that other call that was more pressing or urgent, or have another crisis worker come to me. I shouldn't have to wait until 7:30 at night for someone to come out. And that was irritating. And but when they were here, the crisis worker was here. She did provide me some resources, just general resources, like this is who to call, same resources that Children's Hospital gave me. Here's some therapists. And I told
Yeah.
at that point, this was in January, so she was about to get tested for her psychological testing at the end of January. So when this incident happened, it was in January. Um, I did have this another crisis worker, or I guess a social worker, follow up with me. She came out to my house weekly to check in with Ava and sit with her and work on her, what was happening. So that was nice, to have that resource, but that was only 3 follow-ups. Um, and then that you get let go. Like, okay, you're free. But if I
Yeah.
wasn't engaged already with Ava's therapist and psychiatrist at Life Stance, it would have been a disaster, because now then
Mm.
it's a cycle. Now I'm calling back to the crisis line. Now I'm waiting another 2 hours for you to come here. It's a cycle.
I have questions because I have questions that are beside my questions. Did you ever thought to call 211 or 988?
I didn't. And I don't know why I didn't. I think I called the crisis line because um that's who I was met with, at Washington County was the crisis line. She referred me there. Um, but with my line of work, calling, I find, because I work with a lot of adults with mental health issues that have a lot of needs outside of mental health. I find that 211 is not very helpful either within even just Milwaukee County. I'm running into the same issues with adults that I have with myself, with finding resources.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I can't even imagine. I mean, personally speaking, I can't imagine the anguish that you went through, you know, going through these repeated ordeals and, witnessing your little girl just losing her shit.
mhm.
To be blunt, she's just losing her shit. And how how are you feeling? Like right now, how are you feeling?
I feel defeated and I feel alone. I feel alone because there's not a community that you can go to for support. Um, I even find it hard for family to understand, because family is, family. They love you in, whatever way you come to them. But it's really hard when someone doesn't understand truly
Hmm.
what's going
Hmm.
on and in your day-to-day life. It's
Hmm.
impacted my friendships. it has impacted my marriage and my family with his kids. You know, it has impacted a lot of things. Um, because a lot of people that don't know just think that I'm giving into a child or I'm favoring my child. And at that time, I may have been prior to really pushing forward for therapy and pushing for psychological testing. Yes, I was giving into a lot of it because I wanted to keep the peace. I wanted to keep the peace with
Yeah.
her. I wanted to keep the peace with my husband, with his kids, my other daughter, his family, my family. So yes, I there was a lot of coddling and a lot of giving into. But I
Mhm.
feel alone because there's not a lot of people that understand. And there's not a lot of resources. There's not really any support groups. And there is, so like I mentioned to you, the safe house is what it's called in the city of Racine. It's formerly the runaway house. So that's what a lot of people known it or had known it as in the past was children that ran away from home. They were in abusive families, households, or whatever. They could go to the safe house for 14 days, no questions asked. You know, they have a safe place to stay. Um, but now they expanded that. It's still treated for that, but they also have it for children for respite care. So for parents that are dealing with kids that have mental health disorders or behavioral disorders that need a break, they can go to the safe house. But the caveat is you have to be 12 years old. So they don't have resources for kids that are younger than 12, which I understand
Mhm.
because there's emotional needs and whatever else. And I would never send my child. I'm just going to put that out there for those that may be listening that are like, why would you do that? I would never go there and say, I need my child to go to this home for overnight because I need a break. I would have used it as, hey, I am struggling right now. I need a couple hours. Sit with me. Talk me through this. Like, what am I doing wrong? Or they don't have that. Um, I did
They don't
find
even have respite. They don't even have respite care.
not that I can find. So they have in Kenosha, or no, it's in Racine. It's called We Rock Kids Gym. It's for kids that are neurotypical, so like on the spectrum, or special needs, and they're so under age of 9. But there's like, oh, I haven't called them yet. I just found it today. Um, but I'm assuming you have to have a child that is neurodivergent on the spectrum of some sort, which Ava's not. You know, she just has the other diagnosis. But and that one is called We Rock the Spectrum Kids Gym. It's $25 per hour, up to 3 hours maximum. So parents can go and drop off. But I think I would want something more of a support thing for me to go with my daughter to say, hey, I'm struggling right now. Help me. Help her and I together so we can work through this. I don't want someone just to take my kid because if I wanted someone to take my kid for a few hours, I would call my friend or call a family member for a babysitter.
Right.
I
Right.
I would hope to find more support groups out there that we could come together as a community and say, hey, I'm struggling. Help me out. Talk me off the ledge right now because I mean I'm on the verge of having a breakdown.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
maybe if we see more of that, and you don't have to be a therapist of some sort to even do that, but I think if we came together as a community to do that, I think that would be
Mhm.
a huge step in the right direction because I know for a fact that I'm not the only one struggling. I
No,
know.
you're not. You're not. Just know that. Know that. But your story will hopefully help somebody. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Because because they need to know that they're not alone,
Yeah.
and neither are you. So yeah, I just got a few more questions I want to ask. I'm sorry about this. um, so you've been through some experiences, with helping Ava and whatnot. do you ever feel like there wasn't a chance or that there isn't a chance in finding appropriate services for her?
I felt that there, I mean, right now, Life Stance has truly helped. Um, but I don't know if there's going to be anything else as we move forward as she gets older and hits, puberty and teenage years. We might need more. So I don't know what the future holds. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there was, so I can't speak for the future, but in the past, yes, I felt that there was truly no hope and that finding those resources was going to be impossible. That we'll just have to hide out and I'll have to leave places early or say I'm sorry I can't make it because my daughter, you know, definitely
Mm-hmm.
was.
From a disciplinary standpoint, Katrina, do you feel that if you would quote unquote put your foot down, do you think that it would help?
Um, no, not with her diagnosis. I mean, because I truly like I hope that people don't think I don't have any like strict boundaries or I say no, like because I do. There's plenty of time. I no longer give in to her. I learned the hard way, like I was giving in to her, but I no longer do. So I do say no a lot, but that doesn't change her behaviors. We were just in Disney for a whole week and she didn't have as big of emotions or meltdowns, but it was like you can tell that she was being drained, that it was a lot for her. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to
Mm-hmm.
really just say, okay, you know what, we need a break for a minute. Let's just sit down here. Like it just life became too much for her. And I can
Mm-hmm.
recognize those patterns for her. So I don't think it's a matter of just like lack of discipline or whatnot. I think it's just how her brain and chemicals are working with her. It's just not normal. Like she has ADHD, um, which is a lot different that I learned from females to males because hers is not bouncing all over the place. She doesn't bounce from one activity to another. Life
Mm-hmm.
just gets heavy
Okay,
for her.
that's
Um,
interesting.
and it's really
Interesting.
hard for her to process a lot going on.
Got it. Got it. Um, Boy, I had a question right on my tip of my tongue. Uh, okay. How does Ava interact at school?
She is very popular with all of the kids. Like she has a lot of friends, but I find that she likes to be in control of the situation. Um,
Mm,
she doesn't like to be told what to do. Um,
she
if a
does not.
friend she does not like to be told what, like if a friend has a different idea than her and she'll just say, nope, I'm not playing with you right now, and she'll find another friend to play with. She has no problem making friends at all. It's just the relationships I think are going to be, I mean, she's 8, so I see that being a problem in the future with relationships for sure. And
Mm,
that's another thing too with her with the school district. She's in Burlington right now. We're moving out of Burlington, so we're going to Raymond next year, which I'm hoping is different. But I've reached out to her school counselor asking for resources. I I again requested an IEP plan, but every time I request a review, they say her academics are great. This is not an IEP. I said, okay, well, how about a 504 plan, which is accommodations to help with social and emotional skills, because this is going to be something that needs to be addressed in school. I can't be there every day to advocate. I can be there at home to advocate for the
okay.
relationships that she's building at home, but I don't want this to be an issue at school. And I was brushed off. And
Mm,
I didn't push for it, honestly. I would have pushed for it if we were going to stay in the district. Um, I, but I didn't push for it because I'm like, this, there's a fresh start coming with a new school next year. She'll be at a K through 8. So I'm hoping that this will be better for her with more consistency and structure. So we'll see.
Let's see. Let's see. Uh, I know you mentioned that when authority comes around, that Ava tends to act right. Uh, you don't think that her anger or her, you know, her outbursts are directed solely at you, or is it, or is that organic, meaning that she's truly like pent up inside and it has to come out?
So it is directed at me and her dad and her sister. So it's something that is common for kids with these emotions and chemical imbalances is they feel a release for places that they're safe. Um, so for instance, like if Ava's at school all day, there are some times where she will like have issues, but not as bad as at home. Every day from school or after school, she would just let go. All of those emotions that she was holding in, she couldn't hold on to anymore. So she let go at home. And it's gotten better through therapy with her, that we can identify those feelings, or I can know what's happening before it happens. There's sometimes still where
Yeah,
she'll just say leave me alone. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, definitely it is directed towards me and the places that she feels safe. Um, but at the time when we were at the pumpkin farm, when she was not on any medication at all, um, and before any diagnosis, when the cops came, she did not stop. She just like blacked out. She didn't care who was watching. She didn't care like what was going on. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the medications that she's on right now are helping her and the chemicals in her brain. But I have concerns of the long-term effects of those medications. What is that going to do for her long term? I don't want her to be dependent on medications. I want to find those resources and tools that we can use organically and naturally. Like, okay, this is a feeling that I'm feeling. Let me use my words now and express, or let me go calm down. I don't want to rely on medication for her at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What triggers her?
Change in routine. Um, change. I think the biggest one right now is a change in a routine. So I can give you an example. A few months ago, so I have my business that I run. A few months ago, I wasn't supposed to have a client. Um, and okay, so I'll speak of the incident where the crisis worker came because that was the biggest incident. She was home from school that day. I was supposed to go to my client's house at 3 o'clock. We were supposed to leave here at 2:30. I had told Ava, "Hey, Ava, um, we have to leave at 2:30 today," and she was okay with it. And then something else came up where I didn't leave at 2:30 because I had a meeting at work or another phone call came through and that time got pushed back. And now she was expecting, okay, mom, it's 2:30. You said 2:30. We're leaving now. And I just said, hold on a minute. We can't leave now. And in her mind, it was like, no, but you said 2:30. Now it's 3 o'clock. And she just lost it. So any kind of change.
Mm,
She's very literal. If you say this is going to happen and it doesn't happen, she can't process it. She can't process those changes. She also has to know what's happening in the future. She's never in the moment, like right now. I have to really work with her and say, okay, let's worry about right now. Right now, we're doing this. Like when we're in Disney, what are we doing next? What are we doing? And I'm like, we're not talking about what we're doing next. Right now, we're standing in line. Right now, we're eating lunch. Because if I tell her anything that happens in the future and for some reason that does not go to plan,
Yeah.
it's an emotional breakdown
Yeah.
for her. And she really struggles with that. So there's a lot of different things that are her triggers, I guess.
Wow. Wow. All right. Here's one. What are your thoughts? And I want you to be honest. What are your thoughts of the current state of available mental health services towards children?
Oh, oh man, my thoughts on available resources. I think they're crappy. Honestly, I don't think that they're catered to the. Okay, so if we're being honest right now, I think that the
Mhm.
therapists that are there, and just I think this is just healthcare in general. Everything is
Mhm.
black and white. This is what
Mhm.
the model of care says. This is what we're doing. There's nothing that is going to change their way of doing things if it's not in the book, or this is not okay, this is what a symptom, okay, we're going to do this and this. They never want to change their way of thinking to meet the child where they're at. And
I get it.
I'm hoping that it changes. I mean, like, I think there are some therapists that are trying to do that. Um, but I can tell you, me working in the healthcare industry, it's going to take a lot of people making that change to fight it, to make anything happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Because yeah, and just listening to your story and doing research on this topic, it makes me sad that there's so many people, and it's not just the youth, Katrina. This is all across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, there's a waiting list for people to be seen by mental health professionals. So in the interim, what do you do? That's a big freaking question. What do you do in the interim? That's for adults, teenagers, kids, all going through some bullshit.
Yeah.
What do you do until you get that call? Hey, Mr. Mark, we finally got some help. Well, goddamn, little Johnny just tore the crib up.
Right. I
You
I
know what I'm saying?
right. I mean, I guess the only thing I can say is, I mean, just keep pushing and advocating and just keep finding, looking, doing your own research and just keep fighting. And I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. I mean, but that's why I think we have such high crime rates. That's why we have the kids that are acting out right now and getting into these bad situations, because everyone is struggling. There's no help. There's no support. There's no one to turn to say, hey, oh, it's so frustrating. And it really is. I can't. Mm,
Yeah. I mean, and with the mental health complex closing recently, it doesn't make things better because the complex was a central hub, not just for southeastern Wisconsin, but it was a central hub for the state.
yeah,
So you have people coming from all over to get help and services in this one particular building that is now a parking lot.
yeah, yeah,
So the big question now is, where do these people go? Where do they go? And this involves kids too.
yeah,
Where do they go? Now that mental health, the complex is now a parking lot. Where do they go? How long do I have to wait? Because I gave you numbers. Those numbers were drastically low. They were
mm,
dangerously low.
yeah,
Dangerously low. So it's like you have people that aren't receive you have more people that aren't receiving services, or they don't want services. Because you have to understand too, we're going back to the stigma. We're going back to that stigma. We don't want our kids to be stigmatized.
right.
So We just deal with it the best way that we can. But the way that we're doing it ain't working because the kids are still out of control.
Right.
The kids still, they still need that guidance. They still need that a professional service to them,
Hmm.
and it's not getting there. So what do they do in the interim? God knows what, but it ain't good
No.
because you got it ain't good.
Right.
So you have a lot of people that are out here, dealing with stuff that's chemically wrong or off a little bit, and it's creating such a bad problem throughout the state. I forget Milwaukee. I'm talking about throughout the state. It this the rabbit hole is deeper than what we know it is. I mean, we're talking about it, which is great because I want this information to get out there so that people can really understand how deep the rabbit hole is with this issue, Katrina,
Hmm.
that services that are supposed to be available aren't available.
Right.
It's just not available. Uh, and I'll say this too, it's worse for kids.
Oh, for sure.
It's worse for kids because nobody knows how to deal with adolescents that are suffering from mental health illness.
Hmm.
They can work with teenagers and adults. You know what I'm saying? Their brains are, the brains are different. The way they look at the world is different. But you talk about with a kid who's dealing with raw emotion, they'll haul up and just slap the shit out you just for looking at them. You know what I mean? And to them, that's what it is.
Hmm.
It's normal for them because that's what they do when they act up.
Right.
They hit, they kick. So when they act out to a person, like you or me, it's like we might react.
Right.
Or we might just say, you know what? I don't want to deal with little Johnny because little Johnny gonna get me arrested.
Right.
I ain't gonna fuck with little Johnny anymore. You know what I'm saying? You take
Right.
him to somewhere else.
Right.
So this is crazy. It's crazy, and it's not getting better.
No.
You are you are the textbook example of when the system fails you.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah.
You are it because you got dealt a raw deal, and you're still dealing with it. Even with the medication, it curbed it a little bit, but it's still there.
Right.
And God knows how she's going to react as she gets older and bigger.
Right. 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 I know.
So all kinds of effed up.
Mhm.
But I applaud I do applaud you, Katrina, for what you've had to endure. You know, it's not easy. Yeah, hey, I'm not in your shoes, but I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine the sleepless nights that you probably had
Mhm.
dealing with her.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing too with her diagnosis. There was times in the past that she would be up for days, like, not days like 24-hour days, but days where she would just not sleep until 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, or days where she would just sleep at, every night at 7 o'clock is her bedtime, regardless of what's going on, 7 o'clock. But she would just be restless. And that would be like a pattern, like 4 or 5 days not going to bed until 3 o'clock in the morning. And then days where she would sleep at 7 o'clock. It was hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, yeah,
So I know I'm only one person, but and I think we spoke about this the other day. Like, I want to make a difference, and if my story can help anybody, I'm all like, that's amazing. But I
yeah.
truly, I don't know how this is going to happen or when this will happen, but I want to start some kind of nonprofit organization or something for having more support and resources available for our community and for our children, because our children are our future. And if our future right now is the way that, unknown, like who knows what it's going to be if the kids aren't getting the help and resources that they need. So definitely want to set that up.
Good. Good. Well, keep me posted on that. All right.
Yeah, for
Keep me
sure.
posted on that. How can people reach you, Katrina?
Yeah, so they can reach me on Facebook Messenger. I can also give out my phone number if anyone wants to call or text me. It's 262-930-9793. So if anyone just wants to, reach out for any support if they're struggling with anything, I'm here to listen. I might be, I find resources for adults all the time, with work. I may not have all the answers, or I, there's not many resources I can provide, but I will do my best to help anyone that I can help.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Katrina, for taking some time out to share your story with me, share your story with us.
Yeah.
I know that somebody's going to look at this video and just give a nod. Like, yeah, I get it. I get her.
Yeah.
If nothing else, somebody's going to be like, yep, I
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. And if there's anyone out there that has any ideas, how we can make a difference and how we can start this community of support, reach out to me, because if I can't do it for my daughter, I want to do it for someone else, for sure. Because I know how lonely it is to struggle, and I don't want anyone to feel what I felt.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Well, if you don't have anything else to share, I will end this the interview. So with that being said, Katrina, my name is Mark Ross, and this has been another episode of the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. Remember, self-care is important. So please make your mental and physical health a priority every day first. You guys take it easy. Y'all have a good night. You have a
Thank
good night
you.
too, Katrina.
Bye.
All right.